GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and welcome to another episode of Weekend Crypto, brought to you here on the Gentleman Crypto Network. If you don't know, my name is Trekkw2ks pretty much, and the idea behind this segment is to cover the news events that happen from Friday to Sunday, and then give it some kind of context as far as these being more event-driven news stories, not focused on the price talk or pump and dump, connections to the thing. So I got a couple of things to jump into, kind of going to be a short list. I don't know if it was just that the XRP thing drowned everything else out, but yeah, that's how it kind of went. Before I get into that, I do want to say thank you to the folks who are tapping in as far as the 08 when this comes out in the morning on Monday. I do want to say I appreciate the folks who are taking this bit of information, at least for how I present it, and putting it into how they are cross-referencing the information that they need and how they're looking to operate in this space. Again, as I've been saying, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial advisor. And so this is more just me being around in the space for a while and just crossing how I see these things and trying to stay away from the price off stuff, like I said, and hopefully it makes sense for some of the things that I'm calling and seeing as indicators, patterns, or like set trends, right? And so let's jump into this first set of things. Okay, so here you have it. This first story is Judge in Coinbase SEC case delivers speech in favor of Coinbase. When I first read this, I was not sure where it was going by far. So let me read the subcaption. In the process that started with the SEC suing Coinbase, some statements came out from the judge in favor of the crypto exchange. Now, other thing to note is this does not mean it is actually like 100% positive news. It doesn't mean it's actually a verdict. It just means the judge happened to note some things that, in more detail, the judge happened to note some things that the SEC was making statements on and kind of had to question them like, well, that doesn't make 100% sense. And here's why. So let's jump into this first part here, which is the SEC claims the lend program includes the offering and sale of securities, i.e. lending contracts, and Coinbase does not register them or seek an exemption. The SEC also alleges that Coinbase misled investors about the program's risk and regulatory status. There has been a new judgment in the lawsuit between Coinbase and SEC, and New York State Southern District Judge Catherine Polk who made statement that Southern District Court made statement that the SEC would not they wrote this weird. So I'm gonna jump into the part of what she actually says, which is down here. Okay, so all right, citing Coinbase's IPO record, which was approved by the SEC in April, she said it was, quote, not crazy for Coinbase to think, quote, not crazy, close quote, for Coinbase to think that the lend program was appropriate because, quote, that's exactly what the SEC allowed them to do when they issued S1, quote, end quote. And so the S1 is known as a SEC form used by companies seeking to go public to register their securities with the U.S. Securities Exchange and Commission. So the basic idea is this, y'all. The SEC is looking to say, well, you guys didn't do X, Y, and Z, but it's like, hold on, didn't they turn in this form? Well, yeah, they turned in the form. It's there in the documentation. Okay, but doesn't this form count for when you're trying to do this process? It does count for that process, Judge, but yeah, pretty much they're trying to make an argument for something that when you kind of start scrutinizing, like, well, if they did this process, isn't process, let's say, B equal to the thing that you're talking about over there in section A? The SEC is trying to argue it both ways of, yes, they turned in the documentation, but they also didn't do this other thing, which the documentation is supposed to kind of work as a supplement for, right? So the irony of it is, this is something that is kind of happened a fair number of times in different district courts, state courts and other things where a company or a government agency might go after someone for something or sue or whatever, but then they'll argue something where it's just like, wait a minute, but there's already documentation for it. There's already, what that means on the other side of this process. The point being to this is, it doesn't mean that the case won't go forward and something else happens that, like, case in point, when I get to this XRP story, in that there might be a win in the side of like, well, you guys did put in the documentation that goes towards a security issue, but then there's the other part about the risk. So you still might be liable for some of that stuff versus the security thing isn't an issue anymore. It doesn't mean that this case is wrapped up in full. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100% in their favor. It just means the judge checked the SEC on the double speak that they were trying to do as far as throwing a charge at Coinbase, but then still being like, yeah, but we don't want to admit that we did accept their form and we were aware that they were doing a lending program months and months and months ago in this year, not this year in particular, but the idea that they already knew what they were doing and you guys didn't correct them then. So how are you trying to charge them now? We'll see how this plays out over time. I don't know if this counts as an indicator for what their situation is going to be, but if they do win it, that means it's going to open up a lot of things for other exchanges. So that's the other part of it. What does this mean for the other centralized exchanges down the road if they win this particular part of their SEC case? Never mind about the lawsuit as far as the risk and all that stuff, but that's just something to think about and throw out there. Again, not financial advice, just something to keep in mind for what it means to the bigger space as far as centralized markets. It's not centralized markets, sorry, centralized exchanges. So jumping into this next story, I kind of ran with this site, Bitcoin Systemi, a bit for a couple of these things. Again, it's only gonna be like 4 stories or so. So this one had me. Again, I have said on multiple occasions, anytime a politician, anytime a founder, a CEO, whoever's the head of some organization or business, or whoever's like the brand ambassador or whatever, if they come out and say anything that is outside of it being under oath, there is nothing that legally or technically makes them accountable for what they say, right? The same thing goes for politicians. And this is the same thing going on here with CZ. So I want to say a couple weeks ago, it was floating around about how they fired like 1,000+ people or near 1,000 people. And it was because of an article that was written in the Wall Street Journal. Mind you, everyone else who wrote the derivative version of the story in the crypto sphere, all they did was copy and paste certain quotables out of the main Wall Street Journal article. If you want to understand all of what CZ said, go read the article. I'm not going to do that because for how I'm looking at what it's even said in this short snippet version of the full version of the Wall Street Journal article, I can see what he was doing was a PR take in that. So let's get through some of these highlights so y'all get where I'm going with this. So Justin, CEO CZ statement after Binance layoff allegations, quote FUD, right? Binance CEO CZ made an official statement on Twitter following the news of layoffs. Mind you, this has kind of been circulating for a little bit and it came out of the Wall Street Journal thing. So where am I going? Here. So crypto exchange Binance allegedly laid off more than 1,000 employees according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. Okay, CZ's quotable is here. There are involuntary layoffs as we continue to strive to increase our talent concentration. This happens in every company. The figures reported by media are very wrong for FUD. The good thing is they can't stop talking about us. We're still recruiting. So let me translate some of this for y'all. I would really like to hear how King would throw this because this would be funny as hell. But my takeaway on this is as follows, right? They are doing layoffs, but they're probably giving some of the people who've been there for a bit severance packages. And it's like, hey, you can just go right now. You'll get this amount of medical coverage. You'll get this number of checks into X amount of months. And then, by that point, hopefully you land on your feet somewhere. So you got those people you're getting rid of, right? Then you got the people who you're like, all right, we need to cut the weight of the folks who are not necessarily... if we made a skeleton crew, do we need those people to run the ship? No? Okay, they gotta go. If this person was really talented, but we just can't afford what they do right now at the moment, and they're not about to take a pay cut, all right, let's just give them a severance package. Because you gotta understand, it's the same thing that Coinbase did when they were gonna go for their IPO. They started calculating the numbers out and figuring out like, yo, who do we need to keep? Who do we need to let go? This is more than likely the same thing they were doing for, I think this is on the Binance USA side. where they had to start figuring out who do we need to keep, who can we let go, and how much is it going to run us if we start doing it now versus if we wait X amount later. So the question boils down to, okay, if we cut out, let's say, because granted, they might have only downsized, quote, right, by like 500 people, which, all right, we only need half of the 1,000 people in order to, as we move further into the bull run, still be able to operate as a profitable exchange, still be able to deal with our compliance things, still be able to deal with the marketing and branding, still be able to go out to the events, still be able to handle the influx of people that are going to come into the exchange realm when this next bull run comes to its completion. Not bull run, but when the next halvening comes to its completion and the bull market comes into play. This isn't me talking about it as financial advice. Do be clear on this. I'm saying this to you as far as if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, how am I going to try to weather the market? Because some people will tell you that this is the down part of it. Other people are going to tell you, well, oh, I'm still making money. It's not that you can't make money while all this is going on, but it doesn't mean that the business is actually healthy, which is the bigger thing. How do you trim your business enough that it can still survive? And then you also got to understand, it's not just about what's going on with in the exchange market within the crypto space. There's the other stuff of what's going on in the bigger geopolitical setup and the economic setup, as far as Binance is also dealing with legal issues in other countries, right? It's not just a US thing. It's not just a France thing or a UK thing. They got other things going on in the African countries too. So all of that toll of like, all right, do we shrink the footprint now and like concentrate everything in, get the core people, do a reevaluation on how do we weather it through this down period as far as the legal side of things as well as the economic side of things, and then come up with a plan that once we clear this legal hurdles, or at least the ones in the market that are most impactful to us, we then push double down, we go and like really get hunkered down into market penetration and scaling out either some new type of features. Because you got to understand the other thing too, like for everyone who's on the centralized exchange side of it, like these cases, especially with what's going on in the US for Coinbase, for XRP, for Binance, like all pretty much the industry as a whole, if one of these cases go straight to kaput, it's going to be a blowback negative effect. If one of the cases go up, but then another case goes down, it's like, well, which one is going to have the more impactful positive effect for either the strengthening of the company or the industry as a whole, or which one will be negative in that it might mean a couple of exchanges might end up getting closed down because they just will not be able to weather the new legal landscape, right? Because of the decisions that are being made over here versus what's being made in like Brazil or something like that. That's the point of where I'm trying to go with this. So for what he's saying, this is definitely double speak. They're definitely letting people go, but they're probably doing like, hey, take your severance package now. You've been here with us. You've been loyal. We're going to let you go. And if it's somebody who's really on the high end of them paying them, unless they really doing some next level, added value to the business, they're probably just handing them the severance package and let them, go about their business. For the other folks, they're trying to do what they can to keep them, but they're definitely cutting the fat from the folks who are not actually detrimental to the business going forward. There's another quote on here that I want to run through real quick that says, as we prepare for the next big bull cycle, it has become clear that we need to focus our talent concentration. That means downsizing. Talent concentration means downsizing. Okay, that's across the board what it means. Concentration across the enterprise to ensure we remain agile and dynamic. It is not a downsizing, but rather a reassessment of whether we have the right talent and expertise in critical roles. Literally what I just said. They're trying to figure out, if we do this skeleton crew, who are the people we absolutely need to make this ship still do what it do, versus the people who are just dead weight, versus the people who we would like to keep, but they're not top 3 imperative to keep. They might be the 5th person or the 6th person in that department. I'm just saying, it like when you really go through X amount of this stuff, it don't take that much to see how the double speak really starts popping up. All right, so I'm gonna jump into this next story, which is a combo of Coinbase and XRP. Sorry, not XRP. Binance. So Binance is in the news right now. But yo, crazy part is if you look at the arbitrator news sources, I mean XRP is on everything right now. And so let me break down this situation, and I'm gonna kind of jump. You know how it is. I jump to like certain parts that catch my eye more than the others. The whole article in full. All right, let me jump here first, and then I'll jump to that part. So Coinbase, Binance US, and the other top crypto exchanges are restoring trading support for XRP following Thursday's groundbreaking ruling in the US Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit against Ripple Labs. So if you don't know, basically Ripple pretty much is walking away in the positive position of, hey, they did not do the securities violation that the SEC was alleging that they did. So here's where this goes, right? Jumping into this paragraph right here. They're not the only exchange to restore XRP support to US support for US users. Kraken and Bitstamp also re-enlisted the assets on Thursday, and Gemini said it will be exploring other ways to list and do both spot and derivatives trading. So now you know, like everyone over here is kind of like, all right, we need to grab this money while we can because the gate got open. So now the bigger question is, what does this mean for other what is either a direct stable coin or something that, because of the stability factor that it has, what does that mean for that coin token or whatever? And I say it that way because if you know about Wax protocol and their whole token thing, some people will say Wax works as a relatively, in effect, a stable coin because the price point doesn't fluctuate as crazy as something like a Solana or a Polygon or an Ethereum, definitely not like a Bitcoin. And so arguably it's like, well, what is the margin of fluctuation have to be? Is it 5 cents up, 5 cents down? But if that happens over the longevity of a, let's say, 3-month period, 6-month period, 2-year period, arguably, is that not in effect a stable coin? Because literally the US dollar does the same thing. The USDT does the same thing. Where it's the one thing to have what the value count of a stable coin is versus the count of a stable coin. So you might have $6, but if each stable coin is $1.06, you got $1.36. If I'm hoping y'all are understanding what I'm saying. So if the coin or token doesn't fluctuate that much and it can be in effect used as that, do we then have to reevaluate? Because I'm gonna be honest with y'all, like this whole thing of even how we argue that stable coins are stable because they're pegged to the US dollar when the US dollar isn't even stable, I feel like we then have to reevaluate the whole thing about, well, what counts as being stable? If it is something that works in practicality as being relatively stable, or is it that if the token or coin has to be directly declared as like, oh, this is a stable coin? I'm hoping that's making sense to y'all, but if not, it is what it is. If you feel that I'm totally wrong on what I'm saying, hey, guess what? The comments are open on this, so you can always definitely say something. I do appreciate the pushback. It helps me sharpen why I look at this space the way that I do and argue the points that I argue. Next thing to jump into real quick before I get to this last story is, however, this was the other part. So again, the caveats of the devil's in the detail. And this goes to the same point that I was saying about Coinbase, where it's like, it could be a partial win, but it isn't a full win in how their case goes. So here's why the partial win comes in for this whole XRP situation, right? So however, this is the judge. She did side with the SEC in the assertion that Ripple's direct sale of XRP to institutional participants did represent a securities offering. The court plans to issue a separate order setting a trial date for Ripple and the SEC in due course, which means there may be, okay, I'm gonna throw this idea out there. Again, I'm not in the XRP army, don't judge me. What does it mean if the judge comes back and goes, if you sell to institutions, these things count as securities, flat out, no exemptions. And then Ripple has to then do some kind of break off between its retail level XRP tokens versus what went to institutional level. And technically, I'm imagining because of how the code works, they could actually make that distinction. I don't know, just something to throw out there. And again, and then this opens up a whole new can of worms on the end of, if you're a platform, if you're an exchange, if you're whatever you are and you have a coin or token, now we get into where it's okay to do retail level, public, everyday average Joe person offerings, airdrops, and sales. But if it's an institution, or if it meets some other kind of category that puts it in some kind of financial grouping or labeling, which means they'll probably do some redefinition of something, these tokens, these coins now have to be somehow non-fungible to distinguish between the retail side of it and the institutional side of it. This could open up that can of worms. I don't know. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the legal person, not the financial advisor, but just a thought process as I'm sitting here reading this thing now. Other thing to note, like, this is in the indicator category. Like, what is this going to mean, especially once we get to, you know, the halvening and like how it plays out after, when things really start to pick up in the market, and how are people going to react to the bull market in the halvening, while we're dealing with the other things that we're dealing with in the larger economy. Like, is it gonna pop like everybody think it's gonna pop? And if it doesn't, what does that mean with what's going on in real world with the everyday person? I'm not talking about it would. How about this one? If everyone in the real world as an everyday person is dealing with the financial burdens of like inflation and everything, and they don't make the move, so is this the opportunity that the institutions and other governments have been looking for to like get in and quote hijack, overtake this whole crypto thing? I don't know. If you agree with me, hey, let me know in the comments. If not, it's cool. If you push back and you think it's like totally far-fetched, even better. I appreciate it. But let me jump into this last story. So this was a money laundering situation that happened out of Hong Kong, and it was somehow connected in China. The way this article covers the story doesn't make 100% sense to me, but I still decided to go through it to make a point or two. So, money laundering gang dismantled with cryptocurrency in Hong Kong. So one thing I thought first was like, oh wow, they're using the word gang. Like, oh my goodness, it's so nefarious, it's a gang. And the reason why I kind of honed in on the word of gang is because... Okay, so let me read the subcaption. According to the information received, gang members who laundered illegal money using cryptocurrencies between Hong Kong and China have been arrested, right? So jumping down to, hold on. Where are you? Here. According to police, the student was suspected of helping the group launder illegal funds by using cryptocurrency accounts to trade cryptocurrencies, hiding the origin and flow of criminal proceeds. So here's the part of where it's like either the author doesn't know what they're exactly talking about, or the investigators and the way it's being reported, and they had to take this story from another source. So either the original author doesn't know what they're talking about, or the first and the second author doesn't know what they're talking about, or it was being purported in a way that's like, oh, this is all mysterious and it's all like fully anonymous. It's like, no, dog. Like, first off, they don't even really get into what the actual cryptocurrency is that they use. One. Two, that is literally why you have public addresses. You don't hide the public address. They're not even telling you that they're using privacy tokens. The point of where I'm going through with this is that the way that this story is being purported, if you know how this stuff actually works, it doesn't make 100% sense. And then you have to look at it and go, well, what are we trying to do here then? What is the intention of this article? The intention of the article is to give you a negative look on crypto as it can be used in Hong Kong, as it can connect to China. Here's the thing, and this is me saying, here's my interpretation of the intention of how this article is delivered, or more so how this story is being delivered. Let me jump into another thing here. Where's the other one? Oh, so Senior Inspector, I'm gonna say Chu Mingman from Hong Kong and anti-drug team said that the digital coins were transferred to virtual wallets abroad to avoid detection. Okay, again, another example of, does the investigator not understand how this tech works? Because it isn't a matter of you transferred it over to Brazil because the bank was in Brazil. No, that's not how this works. They're misconstruing the technicalities of how this technology works. There are no actual borders in how this technology works. They didn't transfer anything abroad. They just put it on the wallet, and wherever they end up going, if they want to access the value that is in that wallet, guess what? As long as they had internet, it was accessible. That's the part of where I'm talking about this misleading representation of totally just pushing out how the technology actually works versus what works better to make a negative story around criminal activity and crypto in Hong Kong, and we throwing in China. Like, they don't tell you what part of China this is in. They don't tell you if the kid was actually involved, or is it did he just get like caught up in the sweep when he was at the friend's house whose brother is the one who was actually involved? Like, you don't, there's no context is my point to all of this. What's the other one? I think, yeah, these are the last two things. So the security forces started to investigate the organization at the end of April following intelligence they received. Oh, that was the other thing. This also sounds like somebody squealed on somebody else. That's what this also sounds like. Somebody else was like, no, we don't like that at all. They out here eating a little too much. We got to cap that. That's what this also sounds like. Again, I'm reading into it, but I do understand that this is not even 100% accurate to what was actually going on. And I'm not going to take the time to look into the actual Hong Kong news article that more than likely covered this. It's probably out there. You can probably find it, but I will have the link for this one. And you might be able to figure out how to, what names are relevant to get to that article. What was the other one? The organization. Oh, this is the other part, like what they did. So how we go. The organization opened bank accounts in China to collect the proceeds of crime obtained through various frauds. Members then used their debit cards to launder illegal funds by purchasing valuables such as gold, jewelry, and watches in Hong Kong. So here, like, think about this. And here's another thing, like it's like, well, how smart or like how old is this organization or gang group of organized criminals? In that it's like, wait, so y'all went and got a regular bank account, bought stuff in the other jurisdiction, and then didn't think anybody wasn't gonna notice that y'all was moving that much value through the system? You gotta be kidding me, bro. Like, the thought process of it is like, this doesn't make 100% sense, y'all. Like, this isn't smart criminal activity if you're telling me that they're as organized and as dangerous as you're telling me they are. It doesn't make sense because it's all traceable. Like, how did you open the bank accounts? And then they gave you the debit cards, and then you went over to Hong Kong. Like, and Hong Kong is in a very special position for where it sits, so do understand that. But like, this is just one of those, like, in my mind, the intention of this story, again, is not to inform you that criminals use crypto, but it is to present a negative association with cryptocurrencies and criminals in Hong Kong who are also connected to China. This didn't tell you anything informative, or like, it doesn't even tell you stuff that's like technically right. That's the other part. So again, I'm frustrated for what I'm frustrated for, but I wanted to bring that point to you as like, take note as when you hear news stories, and if they're throwing numbers at you or if they're throwing things at you about what was done, but they don't give you technicals, sometimes it isn't a point about actually informing you. It's about giving you a perception of something. And that's what I'm taking this story as an indicator of. It is about making changing the perception of Hong Kong. That's my thought. That's my takeaway. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, comments are open. Always disagree with me. I appreciate the pushback. You know what we say. We don't delete comments, but we do keep receipts. And so I'm gonna close it out on that one. That's the last story. Again, I am Trekkw2ks. This is the Gentleman of Crypto Network. If you don't know, I do another segment with my co-pilot called 3D, and we talk about metaverse. So let me step back one. We have the Builder DAO account, the Builder DAO that we have, and we host a space is called Metaverse is the Other Side, which is done live on Thursdays at 8 p.m. East Coast time. And then we have the replay that comes on Saturdays, about 12-ish. And I forgot what we talked about this past Saturday. Oh, matter of fact, we talked about the null address that was reversed on Polygon. That's what we talked about this past Saturday, and what that can mean for how metaverses can be scammed and gamed in the future. I don't remember what this next one is, but we got some interesting, when I tell you we are like in a whole different pocket. If you're looking for alpha, if you're looking for the next pump and dump, we are not your cup of tea. And I'm gonna keep saying that to people. But if you want to get into the other conversations that nobody is, like folks don't even got on their radar, that's us. Because this next one of the conversations we're gonna jump into, I think we're gonna do this week, is talking about the cults that are starting to form in VR, in metaverses. And there's a documentation that's going on. You know what? I'm gonna talk to 3D about this, about putting it out there so we can get more folks to be aware, and we could have a full discussion on this week coming up, this Thursday, a matter of fact. But the point being is, we do this Thursdays 8 p.m. And then the replays are on Saturday at 12ish, and it's on the Gentleman Crypto YouTube channel for the replays, and we have the Builder Dial account on Twitter where we do spaces at. Link for that is in the description. And again, as I say, have a productive over busy day. If it can't be a productive day, at least be in a good place, in a good space, and in a safe space and in good company. And from one human to the next, that is the best thing that I can wish y'all. So other than that, until the next one.